parent and constructors in child. Now, like C++ or Java, Python behaves little different. In those languages, okay, like in C++ or Java, when you create an object of parent class, well, sorry, I'm telling wrong. When you create an object of child class, the child constructor is called, and within that constructor, implicitly it will give call to parent constructor as well. Means both the class what get called constructors. You understanding now what I'm trying to tell you? Okay, see here. I'll try to illustrate it with some example. Like if it is C++ or if it is Java, and it is having its own default constructor. Okay, there is a default constructor within which some debug statement is put, right? And from that I'm creating one child constructor, child class from that parent class. And now in this child class also there is a default constructor, getting public B, and here also you have put some statement, a debug statement, getting. Now what my question is, in some other class I'm creating an object of B equal to new B. This is the syntax of Java. Those who don't know, leave it like, correct? So B equal to new B. So I'm creating an object of which class? B class. So what happens in those languages? Same concept applicable for C++ also, same for Java. When you create an object of B class, B constructor is called, obviously. Is constructor of B called? It has to, no? Object of B class is created, so it will give call to B constructor. And inside B constructor, implicitly, compiler has inserted one line which is giving call to parent constructor also. Getting? Now you'll say, what is that line? It is actually this thing, super bracket. Okay? So I'm not talking more in detail about that language. In that language, just remember, when you create a child object, getting? So it will call child constructor, but inside child constructor, it will implicitly give call to parent constructor. Now that parent constructor work is over, come back and do the remaining work. Getting? Means in Crux, what I want to tell you is that whenever you create an object of child constructor is called, and within that child constructor, whose constructor is also implicitly called?
Parents.
Yes, you told right. Clear? So that is the rule in that language. Not only C++, in Java also. Right? Only in those languages, when the parent is not having default, there is no default constructor. There is just a parameterized constructor, something like that. Parent class is not having which constructor? Default. It's having only parameterized. Then in that case, you have to explicitly call whose constructor? Parent constructor inside child constructor. But that is to be done only when we are supposed to call parent constructor inside child constructor. Parent constructor inside child constructor when?
If it is parameterized.
If it is parameterized, or if
Parent. If it is not a default constructor.
If it is not having a default constructor. Getting? So if the parent class is not having a parameterized, a default, no default constructor is there in the parent, okay, only parameterized, then you have to explicitly call. But when we don't have to explicitly call, when the parent is having which constructor?
Default constructor.
So when parent is having a default constructor, तो automatically the child constructor will give call to parent constructor. Object of child is created, obviously child constructor is called, but within that there is a call given to parent. It does that work, come back, and then does the remaining work. But when it doesn't call it implicitly, when parent doesn't have default, parent is having only parameterize, that time we have to explicitly call. You understanding? Clear? But this is not the case in Python. Getting? In Python, let the parent class have a default constructor or a parameterize anything. Child will not give automatically call to parent constructor. You understanding or no? Irrespective it is parameterized or it is not. Clear? See here. Like I have defined class A. In that I have defined constructor of parent class. Irrespective it is default or it is parameterized, doesn't matter. You understanding? And now I have created a child class which is derived from that parent class. Child is also having its own constructor. Getting? In that also there is a debug statement. Okay. Suppose now this is the situation, same situation in C++ or Java, and I am creating an object of B class. This is the same situation, a default constructor in parent, a default constructor in child. Okay, this is a parent class, this is child class, both are having default constructor. Then I create a child object. So tell me if it is C++ or if it is Java. So will the child constructor implicitly give call to parent constructor?
Yes.
Clear? It will automatically give call. The child constructor will implicitly call parent constructor. The child constructor will implicitly give call to parent constructor. Automatic. You don't have to do it. But this is not true in Python. Python says let it be parameterized. Let it be default. Let it be taking parameter. It's a default or it's parameterized. Never the child will automatically call parent constructor. You have to explicitly call it. Getting? So suppose if I run this code, so will it display A, B, or will it display only B?
In which language?
In Python.
In Python it will display only B. In Java it will display BA.
BA or AB?
First it will go to child constructor, right?
But in that first, implicitly it has given call to parent constructor like this. Compiler has inserted this line.
Okay. Then AB.
Clear? Compiler has inserted that line in your child constructor.
Okay.
What a call to parent.
Yeah, what I was thinking is constructor of child will be completed first and then it will go to its parent.
No. Clear? Always when child constructor is called, so you have to assure that the parent constructor is called first and then the remaining of child. Getting? Even in C++ also, it will give call to parent constructor and then do the remaining code. Call of child is only done, but within that child, first call to parent is done, complete, come back and do the remaining work. Getting? But such automatic thing doesn't happen in
Python.
Clear? When Python says let it be parameterized, let it be default. Constructors won't get called automatic. Now someone may say like these are not constructors, these are initializers. It is applicable for constructor also. Like if I write new over here and there also I write new. Clear? Here also new. Then also it is not going to call automatically. So that is the Python rule. The rule of this language is child constructor will never implicitly call parent constructor. You have to explicitly call it. So how to call it explicitly? So there are two ways. One, you can use the name of the parent. dot double underscore init double underscore and pass self, or you can use super function. Super is a function in Python. Is super function going to give you parent object? Yesterday I told you, does super function returns the parent object? Yes, and then you can access the methods of parent. Here you don't have to pass self. Why? Because this is the invoker itself is self. Super round bracket will give you the parent object, and that object is invoking init, which is the init of parent. So you have to write this line, and if you don't write this line, which constructor won't get called? The parent constructor. I'll give you a demonstration of it. Okay, I've opened this PyCharm. Okay, I hope all of you are hearing me. Right guys, see, class A def init print, I'm giving statement like this, I am in A's constructor. Then I'm creating another class B which is derived from A, and here also I'm defining one constructor in which I'm giving a statement, I am in B's constructor. Then I'm creating an object of B class. That's all. Okay. So as expected, like I am in A's constructor, I am in B's constructor, like this two lines should come, but it doesn't. Getting? It will only give call to child constructor. Can you see? I am in B's constructor.
Yes, sir.
Correct? So here you have to explicitly call. So there is one way, A dot double underscore init, and pass self to it. Now when I am explicitly calling, obviously it will go first, means it will first call child constructor, and within that it will give call to parent constructor, do the work, come back and do the remaining work. Okay. See, now is it displaying both? I am in A's constructor, I am in B's constructor. Do you agree, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we'll just quickly go through this on the slide. So when we create object of child class, constructor of only child is called. Getting? It doesn't give implicitly call to parent constructor as it happens in C++ or Java. Getting? Okay. So as like in C++ or Java, where the child constructor implicitly gives call to parent constructor, this thing never happens in Python. Getting? See here. So class A, this is the constructor of parent class. Class B, which is derived from A, this is the constructor of child class. Okay. And now you have created an object of child. But when you created object of child, only child constructor is called. It doesn't give implicitly call to parent constructor. You have to explicitly call it. See here. We have to give call to parent constructor inside child constructor explicitly. And how to give it? There are two ways. One, by class name dot method name, or super round bracket. Getting? And that is used to access the hidden method. Means, is this constructor hiding this constructor? Vice versa, I told opposite. Is this child constructor hiding the parent constructor? Yes, because the name of both the methods is same. No? Is the name of this method is also double underscore init, and name of this method is also double underscore init. So are these methods overridden?
Yes.
They are overridden. So the parent init is hidden by child init. Okay.
Sir,
Then, huh,
what is the reason for this? Like, is it to avoid the diamond problem or ambiguity in the calls to the parent? Just like in case of multiple inheritance, there
you
is
want to say there the constructor gets called twice.
right.
Constructor also get, the object constructor is called twice.
Yeah. So
But
is it
this
to
problem won't
avoid?
happen only here, because here duplicacy is not there. Like you want to say if A and then B and then D.
Yeah.
So when I create an object of D, it will give call to constructor of B. B will give call to A. Okay.
Okay.
So A constructor is called, B constructor is called. Then C, but inside C again A and then C. And then come to D. So you want to say that A's constructor is getting called twice in such situation
Yeah.
to avoid that. But already they have removed it, na? Because
It's
the
like D,
situation,
D
means,
can directly make a call to A and initialize its. Uh, uh,
clear?
okay.
Because here there is no situation of diamond problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I was thinking like this mechanism is
Just to
implemented to
avoid that
avoid it.
duplicate call, repeated call,
Okay.
they are not calling it automatic.
Right.
You want to
That
say like that, no?
right. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So,
Their concern is what you have to explicitly initialize it. Now, automatic it won't get called.
Okay, sir.
sir,
Yes.
a super function is giving a parent object, but if there are multiple parents, then what is the syntax to get the parent object of particular class?
No, but at that time it will do it in, like you want to say here, B and C.
No, if there are multiple parents.
That's what, na, here, like in this
Ha,
case.
in lower, right?
Getting? So super it will consider both the parent and then it will search in both. You can use only one super. Getting? And dot when you'll write something. So it will search in B also and C also if you're accessing. But super will give access to the parent.
Both
So,
parents.
so in that case, then explicitly if you want separate, then there is the other option only that you have to use the class name dot and then access. C dot and then the access.
Okay. Sir.
So that's what now in this topic we'll be discussing. That is to access hidden methods of parent class in child class. Okay. So like if your parent class is having some method, and if the same method is redefined in child class. Okay. So is it overriding parent method redefined in child? So this is overriding. Yes or no, guys? This concept is overriding.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes.
But in this, is the parent foo getting hided because of this child foo? Now this child foo has come in focus and the parent foo has gone in a back foot. It's hidden. But still I want to access this parent foo in this child foo. Okay, if I want to access it. So if I write self.foo, will it work? Will it go into recursion? Means, will it go into recursion?
Yes.
Clear?
Yes.
It will keep printing B, again call itself. Why? Because you have written self.foo. So will it first search it in the nearest class, that is B, and in B only foo is found, so it will keep calling that. So in such situations, self won't work. So there is one option, use the class name and then call foo and pass self. So with this we are accessing which method? With this technique, are we accessing the hidden method of parent in child? Why that parent method is hidden? Why we'll say this parent method is hidden or it's hidden? Because the child has defined its own of the same name. child has defined a method of its own of the same name. So who is now coming into focus? The child method, and the parent has gone in a back foot, that is hidden. So that method also I want to access it. So this is one way. Or second way is by using super function, which will give access to the parent object. Getting? And now when I'll write foo, and here I don't have to write anything. So now will it access the parent foo? Yes, correct. So that are the two ways. So that's what I have to discuss in this topic. So to access hidden methods of parent class in child class. When you want to access any hidden methods of parent in child. But why we should say it is hidden? Can anyone tell me? Why we say that parent methods are hidden? Because
Child has methods with same name.
yes, exactly. Clear? Child has defined the method with same name. Okay. So as child has defined a method with the same name as the parent method, the parent has gone in a back foot. It's hidden and the child has come in focus. So that still that parent method I want to access in child. So one way is this one, this syntax. What you'll give? Parent class name dot method name self, and if it is taking extra arguments, pass it. And second is using super round bracket dot method name and then the argument. Here you don't have to pass self because super is already returning that object, the parent object, and that object dot method name. Getting? Okay. So super function, what does it return? I told you. So it returns the object of parent class. And once we get the parent object, can we access the members of it? Yes. Give access to methods and properties of parent class. Returns an object that represents the parent class. Clear? Okay. See, like as she said, come to this only. Quickly, I'll just try to show you one. Like class A she's saying, and def foo print A will give, that's all. Class B def foo print B. And now class C, which is derived from A and B. And this also has defined foo. And now I want to call that foo. So now, as she said, like super.foo if I write. Okay, so what will happen? And here I am giving C. And C equal to C. I am creating an object of C class. And then I am calling C.foo. I am sure this was only the doubt, isn't it? Shweta's question was that only. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes.
Like if there are more than one parent class, and now in this parent also there is a function with name foo, here also there is a function with name foo. Okay? See, it runs A and C. Why? Because as I said, like in this parent list, it will search this parent list, and in that parent list, in whichever parent it first gets that method, it will call it. So in that parent list, in which class it got that foo first? In A class. And that is what MRO concept I told you. You remember na, that MRO concept, method resolution order, which I showed you. So actually that foo first searched in C, then in A, and then in B. So in that search process in A class only it got, no? So it called that one. Correct? Okay, suppose this sequence, if I change it here, if I make b comma a, okay, so it will give call to b's foo. Clear? I'm sure this doubt again she tried to match it from Java and C++. In Java C++, what happens? Actually in C++ you have to write the class name scope resolution. In Java, if you use super dot and call it, it gives an error. It says that ambiguity. It says confusion because it is saying in both the parent there is same method. Then which one to call? Correct? But here it doesn't give. Here it searches the parent list and in whichever first parent it gets it, it calls it. Correct? But now if you are interested in calling both foo, A's foo also and B's foo also, so there is only one option. Write the explicitly write the name of the parent self, name of the parent self. Correct? And now if you run it, you'll see all three. Getting? I hope the doubt is clear. Okay. See here. So quick example I've
Yes,
given.
sir.
Class A, its constructor. Class B, its I took the same thing in constructor calling. Because are these constructors also overridden only? Can we say this constructor is overridden in the child? What say, guys? Is the name of
Yes,
this method same in child? This init method name is same in the child. So obviously it is overridden. Can I say it is overridden? Yes. So is the parent init hidden in child init? Parents init is hidden in child. So if I want to call that parent init inside child, so this is one option, parent class dot method name or super dot method name. So in this program I have done it by parent class dot method name. I'm creating B object, then B's constructor. Within B constructor there is a call to A constructor. I am in A's constructor, come back, and then I am in B's constructor. Same thing, but I am doing it by super function, super round bracket dot init. Output you'll get same. First whose constructor is called? Obviously B constructor. In that you are giving call to A's constructor, complete, come back and do the remaining work. Okay? So I hope you are clear with this concept. Yes or no, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. So the basic idea is clear.
Yes, sir.
Then coming to another concept called operator overloading. Okay? Now what do you mean by operator overloading? You can say that making operator to operate on varied class of objects. Get it? Meaning that operator is first basically going to operate on some given object types. Like your operator plus is naturally going to operate on objects of integers. These are two integer object, boolean object, string object, float object. So on that they are operating. But now I am making it to operate on some user defined types also. You understanding? Like I am making it to operate on two date objects, where D1 and D2 are two date objects. Or I am making it to operate on two time objects, T1 and T2 are two time objects, and on that two time objects I am making that plus to operate. So that plus is doing its natural work, along with that it is doing this additional work. That's the reason we'll say it is overloaded. It's given more than one task. So the natural task is to operate on integers and floats and string. and we are making it to operate on more class of objects. Means the class of objects on which it can be operated is increased. We are increasing the domain. The domain is increased. So we are making it to operate on date objects, time objects, or maybe you have created some fraction objects. So varied class of objects on which you are making it to operate. So we are saying that operator is being overloaded. That operator is given some additional task. You're getting or no? So you are doing your 8 hours work. Getting? But along with that, like someone in your team has left, and then the boss says like you complete his work also because we have targets. Clear? So when you are doing that additional work also, so we will say you are being overloaded. Getting? Best is mom at home. Mom is one entity which is already overloaded. Right or no? She does her standard work, but along with that, so many add-on work. Getting? So many additional work she has to do. Right? So obviously we'll say she's been overloaded with so many extra works. Like, correct? Like working moms are extraordinary because they have to do their office work also. They have to do their homework also. Means whatever is their standard work at home, that cooking and washing and preparing tiffin and all that they do only. But along with that, they do their office work also. Getting? So obviously we'll say they are being overloaded because they are given extra task. So same thing on operators also. The operator are working on their natural data types. Like they are working on ints and floats and booleans and string. But along with that, if you make it to operate on many other user defined classes, getting? So we'll say it has been overloaded. Okay? So what benefit we get from operator overloading? One advantage we get that we can make the operator operate on big class of objects or varied types of objects with the same syntax and same precedences. Syntax is same, the precedence is same, but the class of objects on which that operator can operate is increasing. Getting? But now how to do this overloading? It cannot happen automatic. So on the objects on which you want to overload it, like if you want to overload it on time object, getting? You want two time objects to get added by this syntax plus. So what happens is when you write T1 plus T2, internally, clear, here some magic method will get called, and you know magic method means dunder method. One object is the invoker of that magic method. Example, here it is add. Clear? There can be many. And the second parameter is T2. So T2 is the second parameter and T1 is the invoker. That T1 only, will it be self? Is this T1 only going to be self internally?
Yes.
Because you know the invoker only is self. In self, whose reference go? The invoker. So invoker's reference has gone in self, and this second one is gone in that second parameter. Okay? And then internally addition will take place, new result will come, you can collect it. But you can see the benefit is you are using it with the same ease and same syntax as if you are operating on the basic types. But internally this thing is happening. So this magic method you have to define in that respective class. So if you are operating it on time object, so this magic method you have to write in time class. If you are doing it on date, so this magic method you have to define in date class. Okay. So examples I'll take. Before that, we'll just quickly go with the theoretical concepts, that is definitions. See here, the mechanism of giving special meaning to an operator. Means the operator is already operating on two integers and float and booleans and complex, but now I'm making it to operate on time, making it to operate on date, where time and date are our created, or making it to operate on employee object or pizza object, 2 pizza objects I'm adding, or 2 burger objects I'm adding. Getting? So I'm making it to operate on many more type of class of objects. Okay, so mechanism of giving special meaning to an operator is known as operator overloading. Meaning, are we giving extra work to the operator? Means we are telling the operator that you do your standard work also, plus you have to do this additional work. Getting? So obviously when the more work is given, it is overloaded. Clear? So user defined types can be made to behave like built-in types by operator overloading. User defined types means those which we have created. Like I have created my pizza class, I have created my time class, my date class, stack class, clear, queue class. So I have created my classes, but on that class I am operating that operator in the same way as I am doing it on the basic types like ints and float and string and boolean. So on that how I operate, the same way I can operate on my class. Getting clear? Then how to do this operator overloading? So it cannot happen automatic. You have to define magic methods, and you'll define this magic method in which class? The respective user defined class on which you want to operate that operator. That operator, if you want to operate on time, so this magic method you have to write in time class. If you want to operate it on pizza objects, so this magic method you have to go and write in pizza class. Okay. Example here I have given. Now can you tell me, we have created 2 objects of which class? Assuming time is a class. Time is a class which we have created. Is the constructor of time class getting called? Is time object created? Is the constructor called? Will it initialize that time objects hours, minutes, seconds to 5, 6, 7? Okay, and same way one more object, its hours, minutes, second is initialized to 7, 8, 25. It will come in T2. Now you are writing T1.add T2. This is a functional look, means functional style, and this is operator overloading. But is this same thing happening in background? I am writing T1 plus T2, but is somewhat similar thing happening in background in context of T1 plus T2? What do you say?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Clear? Is that T1 invoking some magic method?
Yes.
T1 is invoking that magic method. Assume add. So T1 dot add. And is that T2 passed as a parameter? Yes. Then inside it will be doing calculation, creating new time object, and that new time object is returned, which comes in T3. Getting? So I hope you got it. This is a functional notation and this is arithmetic notation. Okay, right? And just remember, whenever you do operator overloading, the meaning of the operator is not lost. Means ideally you should do such work only. Like you are overloading plus, but inside you are doing subtraction. So you are spoiling the meaning. Getting? They are saying that please, when you are overloading the operator, try to do somewhat task which is relevant to that operator. So if you are overloading plus, try to do the activity which is relevant to plus. Okay. So when an operator is overloaded, its meaning is lost. Instead, the domain on which that operator can be applied is increased. Don't you think? Previously, the domain was integer, float, boolean, complex, string, on which that operator was applied. Now is the domain increase. You can apply it on time, you can apply on date, you can apply on pizza object, you can apply on stack object, you can apply on burger object. So you can apply that operator on more class of objects. So instead the meaning is not lost, but the domain on which that operators can be applied is increasing. Getting clear? And after overloading appropriate operator, you can use them in your expressions as if you are doing it on a built-in type. Like as you are adding 2 integers, as you are adding 2 float, With the same syntax, you are adding two user defined objects. That's what I'm saying. After overloading the appropriate operator, you can use objects in expression the same way you use built-in types. Getting? Means as you're adding two integers, and for adding two integers, what syntax you use? The similar syntax you can use for adding two pizza objects. When you're comparing two integers, same way you can compare two pizza objects. Clear? I hope you got it. Now this is the table which I have given. If you want to overload all these operators, but you can observe that assignment operator cannot be overloaded, and all logical operators, and you're getting na? And or those operators cannot be overloaded. That logical operators and assignment operator you cannot overload. Remaining operators you can overload. So to overload whichever operator, corresponding magic method is given. Okay, so just for an example I'll take, for you people I'll just take one example, and few I'll overload, others you can try. Okay, at least few in this category I'll overload. Okay, see here, I'll take one class called as, suppose we'll take class fraction. Okay, vulgar fraction, that is numerator and denominator. So I'm taking one class fraction in which I'm defining one constructor. Okay, but it is a two argument constructor to which I'll be passing numerator and denominator. Okay, then I'm writing self dot numerator is numerator and self dot denominator is denominator. I hope you're understanding this. Getting? Means whenever you'll create a fraction object and then the constructor is called, so in that fraction object two properties will be added. One is a numerator property, another is a denominator property. Okay? Then to define it, see, this is also a magic method. This constructor, a magic method. str is also a magic method. Do you agree? Is str a magic method? Yes or no? Now in which I am writing self dot numerator, then the division sign, and bracket, again self dot denominator. It is just going to get substituted over there. Numerator will get substituted, then division sign, denominator, and then that string is returned. Okay, why we need this str? Why we need this str? So that I can pass fraction object directly to print. Yes or no, guys? I'm expecting quick answers from you. Okay? Now I'll overload one plus operator. Means I want to add two fractions. Okay? If one is 5 by 3 and another is 7 by 2, suppose. Okay? And I want to add these two fractions. So when I want to add these two fractions, what will be the new numerator and what will be the new denominator? New denominator is this both denominator multiplication. Yes or no? But what is new numerator? Cross multiplication. Numerator, denominator, numerator, denominator. Right? One numerator, other denominator, plus other numerator, first denominator. You understanding? And after this multiplication, whatever you get, the numerator, that is new numerator, and this is new denominator. So now for that, I am going to define one magic method, that is add. One is an invoker, one is a parameter. Do you agree, guys? I'll return new fraction object. Is one fraction object getting created? Tell me, guys, when I write fraction round bracket, is the object of fraction class getting created?
Yes.
Yes or no? Clear? So one object of fraction class is getting created. Is it a nameless object? Why nameless? Because you are not collecting it in someone. You're creating the object and directly returning it. Okay? But now to that fraction object, when you are creating the fraction object, what is getting called? Tell me, whenever the object is created, what is called immediately after that?
New.
That is okay, but
It's
actually what?
it's default constructor.
Default or whatever constructor is there?
Initialization.
Means just simple terms, tell me, whenever an object is created, is this constructor called?
Yes.
Clear? So I have to pass two values to it. New numerator, new denominator. Is this new numerator going to be like this? Self dot numerator into other dot denominator plus self dot denominator into other dot numerator. After this whole multiplication, whatever answer you'll get, will it be new numerator of this new fraction object? Here one more fraction object is getting created or no? Is one temporary fraction object getting created? Yes or no, guys?
Yes, sir.
Clear? Is one more fraction object created? Yes. Clear? And that fraction object will be initialized with this value. This whole thing will be the new numerator of this. And what will be the new denominator? Self dot denominator into other dot denominator. Done? I'll show you the illustration. See here, I'm creating first fraction object. I'm passing to it 5, 3. I'm creating another fraction object. I'm passing 7, 2. So tell me, first what will happen when I create f1 equal to fraction, f2 equal to fraction? Okay, so pictorially you'll try to show me. Is first one fraction object created, f1. Clear? Is one instance of fraction class created and its reference come in f1. Do you agree, all of you? But is it having any properties? No. When it will get that two properties? When what is called? This constructor, that is this initializer. So will this 5 go in n? 3 will go in d. And will it copy in self n, self d? But who is self that time? For whom the constructor is called?
F1.
F1. So in F1's numerator, will it copy that 5? In F1's denominator, will it copy that 3? Correct? Now is one more fraction object created, F2. Yes or no? Again a new object, its reference is in F2. Then will it again give call to the constructor? Will it come here? 7 and 2. Will it copy in self n7 and self d2? But who is self at that time? At that time who was self? F2. So in self nd it has added. So self is F2. So this way both are initialized or no? Tell me fast. Yes or no, guys? Now I am calling F1 plus F2. So implicitly means I am writing a normal equation. That is what operator overloading. I am performing the similar operation which I am doing it on the basic type. Basic types means like integers, float, string, complex. On that, as I am adding two integers or two floats or two complex number, same way I am adding two user defined types. Who is the user defined type over here? Tell me fast. who is the user defined data type over here? Yes guys, why so much time you're taking?
Plus operator.
Plus is a operator. Type I am asking. User defined data type.
Fraction.
Fraction.
Yes.
Class fraction. Getting?
Yes.
Class fraction is the new user defined data type. But are you operating on that new user defined data type variable? Is f1 a variable of fraction? Is f2 a variable of fraction? f1 and f2, are they two copies of fraction class? Means they are two objects, means they are two variables of fraction class. So on fraction class objects you are operating that plus, as if you are operating on two integers and float. Okay? But implicitly is magic method called is like this going to happen: f1 dot double underscore add double underscore f2. Is this going to happen? Yes or no, guys? Is this implicitly going to happen?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now tell me, who is self, who is other?
F1 self and F2 other.
F1 is self and F2 is other. Now inside this function, is it again creating one temporary fraction object? Is it creating one more temporary fraction object? See now, here I have written fraction round bracket. Means one object of which class is created?
Fraction class.
Fraction class is created. Then is the constructor of that new object called? For this new temporary object, is the constructor called? Yes or no?
Yes.
And is that new object's numerator and that new object's denominator initialized with, tell me, self n into other d, self d into other n. Getting? Means 5 into 2, 7 into 3. Because that time self is f1 and other is f2. So this 5 into 2, 10 and 21, 31. And that 31, will it copy in this temporary object's numerator? And denominator, that is 6, will it copy in this temporary object? And is this temporary object returned, which is collected here in F3? So in your main program, in F3, that temporary object's reference is collected. Do you agree? And now if I pass all these objects to print, will it call str for all of them? Is it going to call str for f1, f2, f3?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, because whenever you pass an object to print, what is called implicitly?
Yes, sir.
Whenever we pass an object to print, is again magic method called? Which magic method? str. And str is just displaying numerator and denominator in a slash form. Okay, see here. 5 by 3, 7 by 12 and 31 by 6. It is not in a reduced form. If you want to find reduced form, so you have to take the GCD of it and then divide it. But that is a mathematical part. Now it is okay. You got it? Same way, can we overload other operators also?
Yes.
Clear? Like, can we overload comparison operator? Like, for example, I'm overloading comparison operator less than. So to overload less than, which magic method can you see? LT. Okay? So def double underscore LT. Right? Now in this, what I have to do? I have to just check that numerator by denominator is less than numerator by denominator. When a self numerator denominator is less than other numerator denominator. Means this is right. Self dot numerator divided by self dot denominator less than other dot numerator divided by other dot denominator. Here is the actual division going to take place. Like here I have given 5 by 3. Getting? So will it take 1 point something? 7 by 2, 3.5. Right? And then will it check that 1 point something less than 3 point something? Yes, so true, otherwise false. Because it is a less than operator. The less than operator answer has to be what? A boolean. Boolean, na? True or false. Suppose here I am calling that less than in a print. F1 less than F2. Will it work? Will it implicitly call like this? F1 dot double underscore LT double underscore F2. Yes or no, guys?
Yes, sir.
Clear? Hope it is clear to you. So this way other operators also you can overload. See here, the answer is coming true. Okay, why true? Because that fraction is coming. The same way you can overload GT, you can overload LE, you can overload GE, you can overload EQ, you can overload NE, that is for not equal. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Right? So please try to overload the other operators as well. Okay? Now, officially this chapter is over. Just for your information, I just want to tell you. Like many might be wondering, those who have already done some work in OOP, right? Those who have already done work in C++, Java, so they might be wondering how to give the access specifiers. Like there we give access specifiers like public, private, protected, isn't it? Such thing we never gave in Python to the members, right? So never you thought of like this? Those who already know, like I guess Rajesh has worked a lot in Java, like others also I don't know about them, but some object oriented programming, like Shweta also I guess, because she's having some knowledge of OOP. So there we have access specifier rule, isn't it? So here the Python says officially there is nothing called access specifier, public or private or protected. Only you can recognize it for yourself by using some naming conventions. Getting? Quickly I'll just tell you that and then we'll proceed with the next chapter. Okay? See here. What Python says is, like I've created class test, then I'm adding one constructor in it. Okay? And then self dot, if you are adding member a equal to 10, just dot a. So it's a public member, you can access it anywhere. But if you attach double underscore before it, okay, this becomes a private data member. And when you attach only single underscore, this becomes a protected data member. Clear? Protected data member, public data member and private. So when there is no such underscore, it is public. When there are double underscore, it is private. And when there is a single underscore, it is protected. It is only for our convenience. In true sense, there is no abstraction conventions. Like you can say no accessibility rules given in Python. Now, if I create an object of test class, see here, t equal to test, is object of test class created? Okay? T, an object of test class created. Reference copied here. And then is the initializer called, that is constructor. Will it add one property a over here with value 10? Will it add one property double underscore a with value 20 and only underscore with property value 30? It is everything up to the programmer, how programmer is giving the conventions, Okay, but if you try to access t dot a, it will work. T dot double underscore a, and see here, t dot only underscore a. Okay, it is going to give error to one thing from this 3. Clear? What do you say for which one it should give error? According to C++ and Java, it will give error to this both, protected also and private also. Only for public it won't give. Okay, for remaining 2 it will give error, even in C++, even in Java. Python will give error to this one, double underscore a, because it is private. See here. But there is again a hacking method. See here. It gives attribute error, test object has no attribute, double underscore a. Why? Because it is saying it is private. So to the outside world it is not there. Okay. But here there is one concept called name mangling. Means you can fool. Like this it looks like it is private. But here if you attach underscore class name before it, underscore test double underscore a, it will work. Getting? And it will print that 10, 20, 30. You got it? So this is just internally what happens is, to every private member this thing gets attached, underscore test. So though you're calling it private, but can you see you're still accessing it, no? Yes or no, guys? Though it is private, then also it is getting accessed in the outside world. So I said, like Python in a true sense doesn't give any access rules. It says it is individual programmer's responsibility. Getting? Only for your convenience, if you want to differentiate between a private data, a public data, and a protected, so that conventions are given, which you should know. Okay, so I hope you'll remember those conventions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this was all about OOP. So lot of things we discussed here, right? No, class, then empty class, then you can add properties in it, then instance data, static data. Static means class data, and instance data, then adding methods, and what is self, all that we discussed. Then constructors, destructors, right? Then we saw inheritance, overriding, then constructors in inheritance, super, then some library functions also we discussed. Library nahi, built-in functions for adding a property, for deleting property, for checking whether the property is there or no, getting the value of a property, right? And then operator overloading we saw, and just these conventions, that is what is private, what is public, what is protected. Okay? So shall we proceed with the next chapter? Just give me that quick confirmation, all of you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sure, others also.
Yes, sir.
I'll share the assignment. Please try to solve. I'm sure you'll face some difficulties in solving, because now OOP assignments will be little bit lengthy. They'll be little bit big assignments. Getting? Where you have to create class and then array and then sort them like this. So obviously it will be little lengthy. We'll move on to the next chapter, that is exception handling in Python. Okay? Exception handling in Python. That concept we'll see. Now again, as I said, those who know C++ or Java, so they are aware about how exception handling takes place in those languages, right? So you'll be able to very much relate it, that exception handling technique with Python exception handling. You'll be able to match it. If not, leave it. Okay? Assume this is new thing which we are going to learn in this chapter. Now, before telling about what is exception and all, okay, we'll just try to differentiate between a syntax error and exception. Now, normally whenever you write a script, you have written the script and the interpreter is running line by line your script. It's executing your script line by line. And suppose while executing the script, abnormally, suddenly it has stopped running it. It has stopped executing that script. So obviously because of two reasons. One, there is some syntax error. Okay, syntax error means you are not following the grammar rule. You are not following this the structure which that language has prescribed. That language has given some grammar rule or syntactic rule, and that rule you are not following. Then it will give an error and it will stop executing. And the second reason is that the syntax is correct. You have properly followed the syntax. The grammar followed is correct, but still it has abnormally stopped running the code. So why? Because of exception. Okay, so your program is running line by line and suddenly interpreter has stopped running it. So why it has stopped? Two reasons. One, because there is syntax error. And though there is no syntax error and still it has stopped, so that is because of exception. Clear? That is some abnormal thing, some unusual thing has occurred in your code. And what are that reasons? I'll tell you. Many reasons are given. Okay? So I said that a Python program terminates as soon as it encounters an unhandled error. Unhandled, why? Because programmer has not taken care of it. Programmer has not taken care of that error. And when programmer doesn't take care of that error, then sure your program is going to terminate. Correct? And if you have taken care of it, obviously that problem will be handled and you'll continue with the remaining code. But when the programmer doesn't take care of it, obviously what will occur? Getting? The program will sure terminate. Getting? Clear? Now, one is syntax error. Because of that, the program has stopped executing. And second is exception. Okay? So what is exception? Proper systematic definition I'll give you. But for time being, you just remember, when the program is stopped not because of syntax error. Program has stopped executing, but not because of syntax error. Then it is an exception. Actually, exception is an unusual condition. It is an abnormal condition which is occurred during the execution. Okay, like in our day-to-day life also, so many unusual things occur. Unexpected thing. Everything was going fine. Everything was going very smoothly, and then suddenly some problem occur. So that is an exception. Like you're walking on the road and it is summer season, sun is there, okay, sun heat is coming, and suddenly rain start coming. So obviously it is an unusual thing, no? Correct? Okay, so normally you're walking in sunny environment and rain start pouring in. So when that is an abnormal thing. So it's an exception. Okay. So exception occurs so many times in our everyday life, isn't it? And suppose while walking in that sunny environment, rain start pouring, but you were having umbrella with you. Getting? And suddenly you open the umbrella, means you have handled it. So when you have handled it, so the termination won't take place. Getting? You can handle it and continue with your normal work. Right? Now syntax error means what that I told you. When you are not following the grammar rule, the prescribed structure, what the rule that language has prescribed, that if you are not following, what will occur? Syntax error. See, errors caused by not following the proper structure of the language. Now, the language designer has given the rules. No? Like when you write if condition, then you have to write a colon. Then the block of that if should be indented only. If the indentation is not there, again a syntax error. So many times you have seen. Clear? Now, idle is not. Idle is very easy to show that things. Right? Like you are writing if 10 less than 20 and you forgot to write colon. Directly you pressed enter. Syntax error because it is not following the grammar rule. You are creating a multi-line string. So 3 quotes is okay, but if you write single line and then you are continuing on the next line, it's a syntax error because you are not following the grammar. Getting no? So many places like while true you are writing and you forgot to write colon. It's a syntax error. Clear? So when you don't follow the grammar rule prescribed by the language, then we call it as a syntax error or parsing error. Parsing means validating. Actually, meaning validating. So it will validate your sentence. It will validate your sentence means it will check whether it is following the grammar rule or not. See a few examples I have given. Likewise, you might have seen it many times. No? Like you write A equal to 10 and then you are writing B equal to A plus equal to 5. So many times I have told you this both operation at a time can we do it. Long back in chapter 1 I have told you at the time of compound assignment. Do you remember or no, guys? Is it
Yes.
a error?
Yes.
Means can we do this
Error.
dual operation? It's a error. So it's a syntax error. This way you can write A plus equal to 5 is okay. Correct? But the same time only assignment is not okay. Right? Or A plus equal you are writing but you forgot to put space is not allowed. But mistakenly space come. So these all are syntax error because these are not following the grammar rule. Example I have given, see A less than 3 and you forgot to write colon. So colon is missing in the if statement. And second comes exception. Now exception means your program has terminated because you have not handled the error. But it is terminated not because of syntax error. Means your program is perfectly fine. Grammar is followed, but still it terminated. So that is exception. Getting? So errors that occur at runtime after passing the syntax test. Syntax test is done. Syntactically it is correct. And then also during execution it has stopped. So that is called exception. Examples I'll tell you, many are there. Clear? You're trying to divide something by 0. Now tell me, when I write A equal to 5 by 0, is any syntax wrong? Numerator is written, slash, denominator, assignment. Is there any syntax error in this line?
No.
No. But still it generates the error. So that is called exception. It has raised zero division error. It's the name of a class, remember in Python. It's a class name. And the object of that class is created. And that object describes the problem. This is one situation. Likewise, many are there. Getting so many, we'll be listing, don't worry. You are trying to open a file. Clear? Open function. In Python, to open a file, there is a open function. Give the name of the file, abc.txt, and give the mode. So by default, it is read mode. Now it is trying to open that file abc.txt in read mode. But suppose if that abc.txt doesn't exist only, because it is opening in read mode. And for reading, is the file supposed to exist? Yes,
Yes.
guys. Yes.
Yes.
When you're
Yes.
opening a file for reading, the file has to be present. and if it's not, it will throw file not found error. See here, file not found error. No such file or directory abc.txt. Such file is only not there, and therefore it throws this. So syntax was correct, f equal to open name of the file. This is perfectly fine, syntax is correct, then also the problem occurred. So that is exception. See here, example I have given, f equal to open a.txt. Now a.txt you are trying to open in a read mode, and when you are opening in a read mode, the file has to be present. If the file doesn't exist, it throws file not found error. This is also class, remember, this is the name of a class in Python. Okay, so hope it is clear, right? Now we will talk more on exception, because this chapter is especially it is devoted for exception. Okay, so just for understanding point of view, you can say that exception is an unusual or it is an abnormal condition occurred during the execution of program. Means when your program is running, and while running the program, some abnormal thing has occurred, some unusual thing has occurred, then we'll say what has occurred? An exception. Getting? That is from our point. Now internally from Python perspective, what is an exception? Clear? See here. Understand it carefully. From Python point of view, exception is an object. Means ultimately, can you see, everything in Python is a object. So exception is an object which is created at runtime by your PVM, or you can say Python runtime environment. So Python runtime environment or PVM creates that object. Okay, so from Python perspective, what is exception? It's an object created at runtime by PVM to describe the problem. Means that object is going to describe what the problem is. And that's what happened here. See here. Clear? You did 5 by 0. You opened a file for reading, but the file was not present. So what your Python runtime environment did, your PVM did, it created an object of the respective problem class. Here the problem was this, here the problem was this. So it created an object of that respective problem class, and then that problem is describing. Clear? Means that object is describing about the problem. You'll say, how does it describe? Actually it is passed to print, and then it calls its dunder method. Which dunder method? _str . And that dunder method returns this description. This whole description is coming because of that dunder method. Clear? So what is exception from our understanding point of view? We can say it is an abnormal situation or abnormal condition which is occurred during execution of program. Do you agree? But what does Python say an exception as? It is an object created at runtime, and that object describes about the problem. What the problem is, that problem description that object gives. Clear? Okay, I hope you're understanding what I'm trying to tell you. Now next thing, remember that for all types of problems there is a corresponding class. Means what Python has done is, it has done the listing of all the problems. All the problems are listed. This problem, this is the corresponding class. Like you are trying to open a file, okay? If you are trying to open a file for reading and the file doesn't exist, this is one problem. Okay? File not found. So for that there is a corresponding class called file not found error. Clear? You are trying to divide by 0, 0 division error. Okay? You are trying to convert something to some other data type and it is illegal to convert. So type error will come. Getting? You are trying to convert something. It is a legal type, but the value is not legal. Like you are converting string RAM to integer. The conversion of string to integer is legal, but that value RAM is not legal. The
Right.
value error. You understanding? And likewise, many are there. So what Python has done, it has done the listing of all the problems. All the problem listing is done. And for every problem, there is a corresponding class. You understanding or no? For each problem, there is a corresponding class. And now during execution, if the problem is one among this, clear? During execution, if the problem has occurred and that problem is from this listed one, then it will create an object of the corresponding class, then describe the problem and stop the execution. Clear? You understanding what I'm trying to tell you? Yes or no, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Clear? Okay, but now some may say like, okay, if the problem is not from the listed one, then what to do? I'll come to it, don't worry. Then you can create your custom exceptions. You can create your own exception classes. Okay? See. So first we'll quickly see the definition. Okay, only that much we'll see and then we'll continue in the next session. Okay, so an unusual condition occurred during program execution. Your program is running and during execution some abnormal thing has occurred, but which is not from the syntax error. Syntax is correct, but still some unexpected thing has occurred. Then what happens is the program execution is stopped. Okay? So that unusual thing which is occurred, because of which the execution is halted. Why? Because you have not taken care of it. You have not handled it. You have not taken care of it. So therefore it has stopped it. So that is only called exception. But from Python perspective, what is an exception? It is an object which is created at runtime. But when it is created, only when that abnormal thing occurs. So during execution, if the abnormal thing occurs, then to describe that problem, an object is created. Okay, so an object is created at runtime to describe the problem which is occurred during the execution. But will it create object of anything, or will it create an object of the corresponding class of that corresponding problem? What the problem is, will it have its corresponding class? And are all the problems already listed? Has Python already done the listing of problems? What say, guys? And for every problem, is there a corresponding class?
Yes, sir.
And what the problem is, its corresponding class object is created. And that object will describe the problem.